All right, so now I'm going to go ahead and play what we've got here. This is going to be for the pendulum swing animation. Keep in mind what we're viewing here. If you look in this little bottom left section here for our frame rate, this is actually playing at about half speed. This is because I have my recording software open and it's actually lagging a little bit. If you ever are animating and it seems like your project file is lagging or if there's any issues, there's a button up here at the top which is going to test your animation. If you click that, it will open up a separate window which will show your animation being played back at a full speed. We're actually not going to do that right now just because of the fact that my recording software would have to find the new window, and we're not going to bother with that at the moment. I'm instead going to focus on the keyframes that we have here. For these keyframes, I'm going to let them play in the background while I'm describing what they are and why I position them where they are. For starters, the red drawings represent our most extreme poses. These are going to be our main keys for the pendulum swing animation, and as you can see, they start off very far apart and they have this blue position in the middle. This is going to be what's referred to as our passing position. This is another term you'd hear pretty frequently with animations, specifically things like walk cycles. The passing position basically is our pose of getting from one key to another, so getting from one extreme drawing to another. This is basically the midpoint between those two things. And the reason that it's positioned where it is, as you can notice, it might be dipping down a little bit, as opposed to having, for example, let's see here, I'm going to turn on a setting here called onion skin. So if I click this, you can see these two little bars appear. I'm going to go ahead and drag these over a little bit so that the red and the purple are available, and I actually have my layer here locked. We're going to go ahead and unlock that, and you can see very faintly the previous drawings. You can see if I drag them closer to one another, you can make out where they are. And the reason that this drawing here, this middle position, this blue one, the reason that it is lower is because we're creating an arc with our pendulum. If we, for example, we're going to have our pendulum go from just side to side in a straight line, A, it wouldn't look very natural. Again, as I mentioned earlier, arcs are very common in nature. And B, the actual length of our string, if you look between these two different poses, despite the fact that it's dipping down, the actual length of the string is fairly consistent between all of them, as opposed to if, hypothetically, this position was moved up, the string would be much shorter. The distance would be a lot shorter for the actual pendulum, which is part of the reason we're keeping things the way they are here. Now, something I should mention in terms of these key drawings is, let's say I'm going to go ahead and lock and hide this. I'll show you how I actually made these drawings real quick. I'm going to go down here. You can have this little button here will create your black and white for your color picker. If you want to change it to a different color, you can go through here and let's do red, for example. This will affect your shape and your outline for when you're drawing. So for example, this one here, since I'm using the brush tool, we'll make it red. And if I was to press this little arrow, it'll swap the colors and now my brush is black. This is most important when you're using things like, for example, if you're creating a shape layer, it'll determine what the outline is. If I go ahead and zoom in here, you can see that this box I've just created has a red outline. And let's go ahead and swap the colors again. Zoom out, which I'm doing by pressing and holding Z and clicking on the screen. I'm using a device with a touchscreen, which is making it a little bit easier for me personally, although that's not required. If I drag and drop now, you can see it's red with a black outline. That line's fairly thin, but that is going to be red. So what I'm doing here is on my, let's see here, on my timeline, you can see down here that I have this big gray section. This is because I created a new layer where I had already gone through. Let me actually bring this up a little bit so it's easier for y'all to see. Bring it down just a hair. Something along those lines. As you can see, I've already worked with a decent amount of this drawing, but let's go ahead and say I just opened up a new file and I haven't done any other drawings. Let me go ahead and get rid of these real quick. You can add or get rid of drawings by using the different F keys. I'll go ahead and show this to you real quick. So you usually start with about one of these little gray sections down here, and this will be for creating a drawing. This is what's known as a key or a keyframe. And if I scroll, let me turn off onion skin to make my point a little bit easier. If I scroll, you can see it shows up for that one frame and then it vanishes. And that keyframe is how long it's going to be on screen. So if I go back and I say, let's say I press F5, which is going to be, make sure that it's not affecting the other layers, just affecting the one. If I press F5, it will be extending the length of the keyframe, so that now if I go through, say I go back and press play, that circle will be appearing for longer than if I otherwise had not done that. Now let's say maybe about this midway point, I want to do a new drawing. You can actually press F7 and this will create a new blank keyframe. Let's see here. If you want to keep that same drawing, you can go back and press F6 and it will keep the same drawing. But let's say I put a big X through this one here. If I go back to my original, it will stay the same. So F6 will create a new keyframe from your existing drawing that you can go through and edit. And F7, again, if I click it here, will create an empty keyframe. And this is how I went through and made all the different drawings. So let me delete that whole layer, go back to our keys here, and just one more time, I'm going to go ahead and play this animation back. So as you can see, we have our extreme poses and our passing position, and as the animation plays, the poses actually get closer and closer to this passing position. This is because of the momentum slowly dying down, like the momentum is dwindling over time, and gravity is also affecting our pendulum swing. It's another big thing to keep in mind, is all of the real world effects of things like gravity and momentum. They're important to keep in mind with your animation, as this is all interconnected. So I'm going to go ahead and turn off this example keys layer, and we're going to go to another layer where we still have the multicolored keys and highlights, but we're going to go ahead and play it back with all of the different frames intact. And as you can see, as it's playing out, there are a lot more drawings in here. As you can see down here on the timeline, there's a lot more keys up until the very end where I have it holding for a little bit longer. As it's in that resting position, it's come to a stop, so it's no longer moving. We can just keep that same drawing there for longer. And as you can see, those different poses, if I turn back on the key layer here, I'm gonna go ahead and bring it back to start and play with the keys we had before and the new breakdowns. With both of those together, you can see how our key drawings influenced where our breakdowns would end up being. And these drawings are what's influencing the swing's speed and momentum. Now, with the speed of this animation, the reason that there are so many drawings close together, if I go through, I'm going to turn off the highlight layer one more time. I'm going to go into, or turn off the key layer rather. I'm going to go through and turn on onion skinning so you can see, if I go into file here, I'm going to turn off the lock that I have on there. You can see that during the ends of each of these swings, there's a lot more drawings here versus when it's in the middle. And this is going back to what we were talking before about timing. When our pendulum is at the tip of its swing, it's going to be slowing down because it's the momentum of its swinging through one position to another is now suddenly fighting gravity. The momentum has to go up against what it was going up with before. The gravity is now pulling back down on it and forcing it to go back in the other direction. So that momentum that we started with is bringing us over from one side to the other, bringing us back again, and as this is going on, the gravity is pulling on it the same amount, but the momentum is going down, so it's only able to fight off this for so long. So now, going into another position here, till eventually it comes to a stop. And now I'm going to go ahead and play this one more time, but without the highlights selected. Let's see here. Alright, so something I'm noticing is I have actually had an issue with when I was making this file earlier where we have some highlights that are still this red color or the blue colors, and one way we can actually go through and fix that is if I highlight everything, I can go through and click this black color. I can go through here, and any layer that is still red, what I can do is I can actually highlight it, click this black color here, and it will change the color of our layer to black. You can do this for existing animations or for any animations you're currently working on. If you want to change a color of something, you can go through, highlight the object, and change that color. This was something where when I was making the file earlier, I believe there was an issue with certain layers weren't locked that I thought were locked, which can happen from time to time. There's nothing wrong with that. You just go through and change these here. And now that I know all the other layers are locked, I know it's not going to be affecting the rest of my animation. And I'm going to go ahead and speed up past this real quick, and I'll show you what it looks like when it's all finished. Alright, so I am here again with the project file. I've gone through and made all of the key drawings the same color, so that way it's not too jarring when the animation is playing back. Again, as you can see here, the computer is showing it at about 4th or 5th of the playback speed. And what I've gone ahead and done is I've gone ahead and rendered out a version that has all of our different layers together. And let's see here, pull that up real quick. Now this animation example is going to be what happens if you render with all of your layers still together. Even if a layer is hidden in Adobe Animate, it will show all of them at once. But this should give you a pretty good idea of what the speed of our pendulum swing looks like. So as you can see, with all of the different layers all together, it looks pretty natural, pretty believable. And this is because of all of our different things we've been talking about all coming together at once. The timing, the arcs, the gravity affecting everything, the easing in, the easing out, all of that comes together, and you can see how our different keys are affecting things here. Now I'm going to go through real quick, and I'm going to play back things one more time, but I'm actually going to go into the class project file and delete the other layers that we don't need. Okay, so when I'm doing this, I'm actually going to go through, I'm going to do File, and I'm going to do a Save As, because I don't want to work destructively where I get rid of things. I'm going to call this class project, let's see here, let's call it class project 2. So I save, and as you can see up here, class project _2. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of some layers here. So I want to unlock and unshy these so I can see what's what. So this first layer here with these main keys, I'm going to delete this. Oh, I'm going to delete the whole layer. I'm going to grab the highlights where it's the swing, but it still has the colored highlights. Together and get rid of those. All right, and now we have our swing. I'm going to go ahead and hit play one more time in the corner. And what it's going to do is going to generate that new video where you can see our finished animation. All right, after seeing that play back a couple times, I think that looks pretty good. Now keep in mind, with certain other principles of animation, for example, things like solid drawing and things like that, you can take these ideas and instead of having it be more of like a 2D look, you can add things like shading and highlights and all of that. You can add these things to your pendulum swing, maybe adding additional characters, things like that, interacting with your pendulum so that way, when you're playing it back, you can have all these different polished elements. This class is mostly just to show you what a finished animation would look like, not necessarily all the different highlights and all the different details, and also showing you how to bring that pendulum to a stop.